Hi, my name's Effie Kats and this is Uncommon.
Uncommon is a production by Neuralle, a unique digital agency. Neuralle specialises in content production in the areas that matter most to your content strategy, across podcast production, video production, and social media. If you want to increase your conversion or grow your brand trust, head to neuralle.com to request a callback. That's neuralle.com.
My name's Jordan Michaelides and I'm the host of Uncommon, a show that asks the why on business, current affairs, media and sport. If you like this episode, do of course like and subscribe. This will help the YouTube algorithm work out whether you like this type of content. To find all previous guests, just head to neuralle.com/uncommon. For podcast audio, search Uncommon on all your good podcast apps, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify. For social, keep up to date with behind the scenes at uncommon_show. With all that being said, let's get into the episode. My guest this week is Effie Kats, creative director and founder of Effie Kats the label, and of course Bayse as well. Effie, it was interesting trying to get notes in the beginning. Mm-hmm. I did find someone who gave me some good intel. Oh. So I was curious when we were going through this whole process and when you were younger, did it ever occur in your head that maybe one day instead of fashion, you get into transport?
Yeah, no, I never wanted to get into transport. My dad's friend, I think you're referring to Michael Damianos.
Yeah.
He gave me one of my first jobs at Phoenix Transport.
Yeah. Where was it? Derrimut?
Derrimut, yeah. God, you're taking me way back.
What was that like? Rough, yeah?
It was a job.
Yeah.
It paid well.
It's a job, you got paid,
Yeah.
It's one of those things that you just do. How old were you guys?
Oh my gosh, I was like 19, 20.
1920, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things you just do at the time. I remember I, for years, worked in my dad's factory. He's a printer. And I remember Lauren used to do some shifts, like in uni, similar age. It's rough work. You know, you 8 hour straight shifts.
Those truckies get feisty.
They do,
that was
man.
the main issue.
Yeah, the transport people are always, because they wouldn't handle the logistics. The logistics people would come in separately. So, yeah, it was very funny when he told me that. I love the inside notes on stuff like that.
Wow, it takes me way back. How do you know Michael?
So we know a guy, his last name's Panos, but they call him Pinner. I don't know why. Panos. They're all in real estate.
Okay.
So I know Dimmy.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's Dimmy, Tom. They're all involved in like Buxton.
Yes.
And I can't remember how. I think Tom listened to the show. We had a guest on. He listened to the show. We got chatting, and like he grew up in Bentley. I grew up in Bentley, so we just sort of bonded over that.
Yeah.
We had tried to catch up for coffee. Amongst
couple
all this,
things
like
got in the way.
Yeah, a few little things got in the way, but yeah, he's a good guy. And then Dimmy hit me up. He was wanting to start his own podcast. Oh. Which is cool.
Yeah, he'd be so good. He's got the gift of the gab, that kid.
Yeah, he's a good conversationalist, that's for sure. So I know you grew up in this sartorial family. Mm-hmm. You've got a pop or dad who's a tailor. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's still with us today.
She is.
She is. Seamstress.
Both of them. Yeah, well, yes.
Yeah, and your papa.
Well, my grandma is. My papa was there, so he's in the workroom too. He just kind of walks around and tells us all, what to do. And
how old are they?
Oh, they're in their 80s.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I should know.
That's really nice. So you obviously grew up around that. What's the earliest memory of this sketchbook you had as a kid?
Oh, yeah. When I was young, I would have been like 8 or 9, something like that. My dad used to have like men's Vogues. There were never any like women's Vogues because my mum just wasn't into that. So,
really?
Yeah, no, my mum's a lawyer, so she just wasn't really into fashion or anything like that. So men's Vogues was all I had, and I used to read Dad's magazines, and I used to kind of reimagine the outfits as like women's outfits. So I used to redraw them, but I'd make the jackets a bit shorter, the pants a bit tighter, and I don't know, it's a weird thing for a kid to do, but that was my hobby.
Yeah, it's one of those things you do though when you grew up around that stuff.
Yeah.
Like when I was listening to that as part of one of the interviews, I thought, what was like the nostalgic thing you had as a kid? Because I remember being in Dad's factory and it would always be like the smell of fresh paper.
Yeah.
So I'd have like that fresh smell I still have it to this day. If I print something out, I go and like...
It takes you back?
It just takes you back.
Yeah.
What's the nostalgic element for you? I know you're still are you still working out of the Coburg spot?
Yeah, I'm in the nostalgia. I'm still in it. We have had the building for, I think, like 25 years. So I grew up there, and not, a few little things have changed, but we've got all the old machinery and the cutting tables. So yeah, I'm living it.
It's all there. Does the family own the factory?
Yes, we own the building. Yeah.
Yeah, classic.
There's no escaping it.
Classic Wogs. I mean, my dad did the same thing. He's like, you've always got to own the building.
Property.
Property. It's always
key.
about property. Was there a lesson like that you found, I don't know, growing up? I know in one of the interviews you mentioned that your yaya was very impactful on your career as well as your dad. But was there any like principal lessons that you learnt from them at all over the time?
My family are real workhorses.
Yeah.
And I don't know what your family's like, but they're very like, nothing's good enough. You got to work harder, keep going. So, and not much for sympathy. So I kind of grew up with a really, really hard like mentality, and
so sort of an A-type family, yeah?
Yeah. It's carried on. Like that work ethic of, keep going, do better. It's something that I've carried on into my career.
And do you find that, like, because I've had that obviously as well, like very A-type family, do you, like I've often built that into my personality, which can become like a bit of a double-edged sword.
It does, because you
can't chill out.
You're your worst critic.
Yeah.
Nothing's good enough. But, at the same time, you achieve more. So it's a double-edged sword.
How do you... Well, we can probably get into that when we talk about Zachary, because I feel like that was probably the moment when you realised that, maybe you just needed to chill out a bit. I had it for me like 2 years ago, so we'll get into it there. But what was really interesting was, you obviously... styling, buying your own clothes. You studied photography, then PR, and at every turn you were sort of weaving fashion into it.
Yes.
And I know that you, like, apparently your dad would, like, obviously, he was speaking about the impact of being in the fashion business. I remember my dad used to do a similar thing, and he still does it to this day. He's like, as we have this business, he's like, oh, you sure? Sure you don't want to, just have a job?
Yeah. Anything else.
Yeah, like, and always sort of externalizing that. And I know that for me, it meant that I didn't get into printing. Of course, I had to go. My first job was like a profession.
Yeah.
Go to accounting, banking, finance, something like that. And I hated it. Yeah. So.
It's dry.
Yeah, it's very, very dry. Did you feel that was, how much of you not just going straight into fashion was your old man sort of pushing you away?
Look, to be honest, I think it was kind of both. So it was Dad, it was watching his struggle and how hard making clothing actually is. People don't realise. Yeah. And I was just kind of like, oh, I don't want that for me. And Mum's a lawyer, so, she has done, I should say, extremely well for herself. And whilst it's been a really tough journey for her as well, it's been really rewarding. So I looked at, I guess, Mum's journey and Dad's journey, and I was like, oh, I had the grades to kind of go into something more academic. Yeah. And I was like, maybe I should, But I've always been creative at heart. So, I, started with photography, then got into PR, dropped out of both. And I think when you're destined for something, you can't escape it.
Yeah, I think it sort of seems like your personality traits were probably driving you towards that.
Definitely. Couldn't fight it.
Yeah, you could like you were always interested in it. I remember like for me it was sort of similar, although I like the business side of things and I did that sort of accounting, banking, finance stuff. It was media that was always stories fascinate. Yeah. I mean, you got to think like if you grew up around a family, it's the same thing that you would have had if you grew up around a family and they're like fourth generation of this thing, and everything that they value is these hush stories at the dinner table,
of course,
these big books and stuff like that with really precise bounding and all that sort of stuff, binding, and it just, I don't know, it's just one of those things that gets ingrained into you, and at least if you're like one of your parents as well.
I think for me, when I would think about my life and growing up, I felt really lost.
Yeah.
And I was doing jobs that didn't make me happy. And I kind of recognized from a really young age that if you want true happiness in life, you have to pursue your passion, because people can do jobs that pay them really well and buy them a beautiful house, but, inside, are you truly fulfilled, even if you have money?
Well, when did you realize that?
Really early on. I was just so... I don't know. I think I've just had this this core instinct that would just tell me when I was on the wrong path, and
you could just feel it sort of here.
And I couldn't explain it. I certainly couldn't put logic to it, but I just knew. And even though I remember when I dropped out of PR, so it was my second course, I was like to Mum, I'm going to start a brand, and she was like, really? And I couldn't explain it because I knew I knew how tough the industry was, and I knew it sounded insane. But my heart of hearts was telling me that that's what I had to do, so that's what I did.
Yeah, and I think it was probably, that you said in a prior interview you're at uni. Zachary was really born probably because there was just your own itch that you needed to scratch, right? Like. The example you gave in the interview was there wasn't anything between Cookai, which was sort of on the simpler end, versus Manning Cartel, which was on the higher end for a uni student attending a wedding. And, if the majority of this audience or a bunch of guys are listening to this and thinking, what the fuck does that mean? The way I often think about it is it would be like there only being a high-end Mercedes on the market versus a brand new Toyota, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
There was nothing in between. I feel like the VWs and the Audis of the world really filled that gap in the last 10 years, and it sort of seems there was something similar. The something similar has happened in men's fashion, but we'll probably get in, because it aligns well with the Effie Kats label today, but I know you said you want to be like the Tom Ford of women.
Day. Yeah,
of everyday women.
Everyday woman. Yeah.
When did you realise that the stress of starting this thing was less than the potential opportunity?
I don't know if I ever realised that. It's been really, really hard every step of the way. But again, something in my core just says, keep going.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is, but I would have these days where it would be like, tens of thousands of dollars worth of stocks come in faulty, even though we've worked tirelessly with factories to explain to them about thread tension and how we want things finished and all of that. And I just remember being in the bathroom. I still do it, actually. I don't know. It's, just being at complete breaking point and just going, these are the defining moments of success. People either give up or they push through. Yeah. And I think in credit to my upbringing and that real tough, work harder, keep going, I just keep going.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned like Elon Musk is like one of the entrepreneurs that you looked up to or do look up to.
Yeah.
That quote is entrepreneurship is like chewing broken glass and staring into the abyss.
Oh, I haven't heard that one.
But it's fucking true, right?
Yeah. Oh, literally. Well, I always refer back to this analogy of it's like jumping off a cliff and assembling a plane on the way down and hoping to God you don't hit the ground before you work it out.
Yeah, pretty much. That is exactly it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's also like what makes it so exciting as well, I find.
It's a thrill. And I think for me, I know like the security of getting paid a weekly wage is, you know, for most sane people, a great way to go.
Yeah.
But I am one of those people where I just thrive from creating and, again, following my passion. And I it's not for me.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd be a great employee, to be honest.
Yeah.
So,
I would say that it is like having been an employee, it's tough.
yeah.
Particularly when you've got that strong-willed mindset and you have an idea of what you want to do and someone tells you this, it's like...
Well, yeah, someone's dictating, you know, from my uni lecturers to the bosses that I had when I was younger, it was always like, no, you should do things like this, or no, we don't like this, we want it done like this. And it's like, for me, I just want to express what's inside. And I don't think someone telling me what's right and wrong is right for that, you know, because it's what I want to bring to the world.
Yeah. Do you, like in the early days, I think things moved pretty quickly. I was reading in one of these things, it sort of seemed like from day one out the back of that fabled family workroom, it was just bang, bang, bang. What was sort of, before you took on the investment, what were the highs and lows of that period, or was it all highs?
Like when we were developing the brand?
Yeah.
It's all such a blur because I think it really did take off so quickly. I kind of went from, oh, okay, let's try this out. And I had my friend who was pattern making at the time. We were just making a couple of pieces. But the demand through Instagram was so quick that not having that technical knowledge in fashion, it took its toll.
Yeah.
It took its toll because I think I'm an ideas person. So I'm putting out these ideas, but I didn't have the technical knowledge to execute. So I was always relying on others to make that happen. And then I learnt about a lot really quickly through a lot of mistakes about stretch garments and the correct thread tension and what to explain. And, you know, even now with Bayse Brand, when I'm working with these big factories, they'll go, I'll say, no, you need to do this. And they'll say, no, that's not possible. And I'm like, listen, mate, I've been in this industry for 7 years. I have made every mistake under the sun. I know what's possible. Go back and make it happen.
Yeah.
And they do.
Yeah. It was in hindsight, was there a mistake that you made that seemed pivotal at that moment, but in hindsight seems almost childish? And the example I'd give for myself is that I remember working in hospo and I dropped a glass, like I was carrying a tray. I used to work at the press club when I was at uni. And so I'm walking behind this table and I've got this tray of like wine, beers, everything. And I said to this person, like, excuse me, just walking behind you there, like tell them. And then they just get up. They get up and the tray like, and went all over them.
Stop.
Yeah.
Worst nightmare.
So that's like probably one of those things. But in hindsight, I just, now what it's meant is that it means in any sales, discussion, conversation, whatever, I don't give a fuck about anything. Everything's on the table. I can't be embarrassed by anything.
Yeah.
Because I've done that to someone.
Yeah.
Is there something like that you have?
I think that there were lots of mistakes made in terms of like production and all that kind of stuff. But the most pivotal one would be to have brought on an investor and to not have trusted my gut, because essentially Zachary was like your tray.
Yeah.
And you kind of know and you can see it, and then it all collapses. And you know why when you look back in hindsight. But things like that happen so quickly. And I think for me, that was the biggest mistake.
Do you think at that point, because it sort of seems like in prior interviews you've spoken about the fact that that A-type mentality, you want to grow fast, right? But now you have to temper it.
Yeah.
Was that what drove you to get the investment? I know your old man was against it at the time. He was continue working in this workroom. But you're like, oh, scale.
No. For me, it was I had to keep up with the demand. And both my dad and I did not know what a beast stretch garments were. And we were producing things and really doing our best. But, with stretch, and particularly, like for us, it's double layered. So this T-shirt, for example, is single. It's double layered. It's got to be sewn with a particular thread tension. And then any plain stitching has to be sewn with that correct tension. Otherwise, you get a hole and it's a faulty garment.
Really?
So I had no idea about how delicate that whole kind of process is. And if it's not done correctly, you're producing faulty garments. And we were learning on the go. And my dad's very like, oh, yeah, but, things happen. And, it doesn't matter what you think, the majors don't have these issues. And it was like, I'm such a perfectionist that was really getting to me.
Yeah.
And I, if I'm honest, I felt at the time people had experiences with Zachary where, holes had, appeared in their garments through, wearing them. And I wanted to nip that in the bud. Yeah. And I didn't know. And I think that for me, being such a perfectionist and so driven, not knowing is the most frustrating thing. And I felt like I was clutching at straws every time I was trying to fix it.
Yeah.
And I guess, I was approached by someone who claimed that they knew. So I went with that. And then, there were a few red flags that had come up, but I ignored that because I was so scared. And I think that's the biggest mistake you can make in business is to make decisions based on fear.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And I learned a really harsh lesson really, really young. And I ignored my gut instincts because I didn't trust in myself, I guess, in my voice. And I paid the ultimate price. But now when I look at that, I think that was so necessary to my growth and development as a businesswoman.
Yeah.
Because I learned how to rebuild from ground zero.
Yeah.
And to me, total humiliation.
Yeah, I got a feeling that you're probably going to be a happier person if Zachary had failed and the brands that exist today exist versus if Zachary had scaled the way that it did. Because, Zachary was ahead of his time, but it was still in tune with what was happening in the trends of the retail market, which
totally was very commercial.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which, for you personally, probably didn't give you. I think in the long run, it probably wouldn't have given you as much fulfillment. Yeah.
Like the creative outlet wasn't, because it was always like, well, what's going to sell? And we were always making red, navy, black, white dresses, and we tried a couple of different things, but I think as well, having all these overheads, all these staff, like I really let that pressure compound and I was making decisions based on what's going to make the most money rather than what actually feeds my soul. And, am I truly expressing my creativity? No, because all these external factors are influencing them. And again, I think as a young woman in business, through lack of experience and I guess just not having that confidence in myself, I was really swayed by external factors, which again, I learned not to do through, to me, what was the worst possible thing that could happen.
You so the business, or you left, the business started going into administration.
Yeah.
You took time off, moved back home. Through this 5-month sort of exorcism, you could probably call it.
Yeah.
I think you probably realised that you were the only person who could deal with your shit at the time. And I found it really interesting that you wrote down the list, this list.
Oh, the list
that was blocking you from living your truest life, was the quote that I had. I was curious, how much have you carried that process to this day? Do you still do things like that where you write down and have a list of shit that's causing you issues?
I do, and I think as humans, like, we're constantly evolving and we're facing different challenges and we're facing different parts of ourselves as we're ready. So for me, you know, and I think, I'm sure a lot of people have this, it's been facing a lot of stuff from my childhood and recognising where the roots of my anxieties and my insecurities stem from, facing them and working through that. I'm constantly doing exercises that kind of hone in on that. And it's challenging, and it's not, I mean, it takes a certain kind of emotional intelligence to recognise, okay, I've got these issues and this is why I think I do. And then working through that, it's not easy. And that, you know, especially in isolation, I was on such a runaway train before, not in the, you know, out of control way, but it was like everything was so busy and I just never had time to deal with things that were coming up. So isolation was actually a really great opportunity for me to deal with some of the things that I kind of knew were there.
Yeah,
But
you hadn't done.
I was like, I can't even deal with this right now. I'm so busy, I don't have time to feel vulnerable.
You spoke about the fact that you had pretty bad anxiety, and I think I had a similar thing. I was at a younger age, but I didn't have that moment that pressured it. And then I think it was when I was like 25, 26, the anxiety came back hard. It got so bad. I remember it was even in the midst of doing these interviews, like probably 18 months, 24 months ago. And my mouth would get like so dry, and I started to get like this phobia of swallowing food. I used to puree my
sister had
food.
exactly that.
Really?
She couldn't eat. Like she was so anxious that she couldn't swallow food.
Couldn't swallow food, and I would blend food. I did that for like 6 months, and then eventually you go through all these things and they think it's like a gut issue.
Yep.
They realise in the end that it's actually a mental health issue.
It is.
And they tell you you need to go see a fucking psychologist, basically. And I changed a lot during that period. I remember at that time I would like diarise a lot, like just write a lot. But now I don't need to as much, but I have to meditate every day for like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. Otherwise
I commend you, because I can't meditate at all.
Otherwise I'll be cooked.
Yeah.
I'll be absolutely fried. But so I feel like you have to sort of have those moments, at least, at some point. It's better you have it earlier than later.
Totally. Look, for me, it's a constant thing. And I think recognising it and working through it and developing as a person, and, you know, that has flow-on effects. It makes you a better business person. It makes you more in tune with yourself, and you can establish closer relationships with friends and family, and you have an open mind to certain things in life. And again, I think having an open mind in business and recognising and openly accepting your weaknesses and also your strengths, of course, but I think that makes you a better business person because you're not dogmatic.
Yeah.
It's not like, no, this is the way it is. And it's like, you know, there's so many cases I've seen or even been in that position as an employee where you can see what your boss is doing wrong and it's so frustrating. And, you know, you make suggestions and they go, oh, no, this is how we should do it because blah, blah, blah. And I always said to myself, because I've been in those situations, I never, ever want to be that kind of boss because life is constantly evolving and changing. So are people, and so is life, and then so is business.
Yeah.
And if you don't adapt and evolve constantly and you're not conscious and aware of all these things, which does take a level of emotional intelligence, then you get left behind.
Yeah, you get left behind pretty
Quickly.
quick. But also, you just, I don't know, as a person, you're just not able to experience life as much as you... Yeah, you just miss a lot of things. They go over your head.
They do.
So I would definitely agree with that. I had to ask, what did you had a very small window of time off. What was the one thing you did miss that you were able to do regularly from that time off? Or were you just in bed all day?
No, I was never in bed. I wish. I think I really missed, again, it's like there's a flip side because like I miss the thrill of everything and I'm so go that I think stopping really exacerbated my anxiety because I had no choice but to do so.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I really did miss that, you know, I was constantly on getting planes and like going to events and, you know, in the workroom and then Bayse and, you know, it was like nonstop. I never had a minute to just stop and think, not think, but like, you know, just take it all in, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I find like meditation, pardon me, is so useful because, I don't know, it's like it discharges all the shit that's in your nervous system. That's the only way I can explain it. When you can start to meditate properly.
I know. And that's my next step. It's just that mindfulness, but like my mind races like 1,000 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I had to learn, I had to get properly coached into like getting out of that stage. And often what it comes down to is you just got to like accept that your brain will do that for the first few weeks.
And not
that was intense.
Get frustrated at yourself. Because I'll be sitting there and I'm like, and then I'm like, I can't do this. This is so annoying.
Yeah, all you have to do is just like literally sit there. And so the first few weeks it was really hard because your brain doesn't stop at all. But after like a week or two,
it does.
Maybe like I don't know. I like fall asleep now.
Really?
Yeah, when I meditate.
Wow.
But apparently it's not like you're falling asleep. It's sort of like
a different state of consciousness.
A different state. Yeah, it's like you're so deep in sleep, but you're so awake that you can snap out of it really quickly.
Right.
It's really interesting. But so the wind down began November 2017. It was April 2018 that Effie Kats launched. It was, what was really interesting about it when Lauren first saw your brand, and I feel like it was Gemma Watts who may have shared it that we knew of. Anyway, she saw it and she's like, fuck, why had no one been doing this before? Because she's petite, she's got a bigger bust, so it's really hard to find anything that really fits. So you've either got to buy really baggy stuff or stuff that's way too tight.
I would say because women's tailoring is fucking hard.
Yeah.
It really is. Because we're not, we all have really different
There's too many
body
variables.
Types. There are.
That's what it is.
Right? So you could have a big bust or a small bust or broad shoulders or really slim shoulders and then big hips or, you know, our bodies are so different and we're naturally curvier than men.
Yeah.
So to fit a jacket that sits beautifully and pants that sit perfectly, it's hard. But for me, that was something that I was really passionate about because I found that in this period of, you know, the exorcism, the downtime from November to April, I felt so powerless and so broken. The only time I felt like myself, I guess, was when I dressed up and I wore something that made me feel amazing. And so I wanted to bring that to women because, you know, life's tough and there are so many, you know, circumstances in life that make you feel less than. And I've never been, you know, 6 foot tall or, you know, just, you know, you see those stunning women and you're just like, wow, you know, that's just, you could throw on whatever, a potato sack and you look great, you know, and I'm shorter. So it was always harder for me to feel like I stood out. So clothes was my expression. And I wanted to give women that armor, in a sense, that just made them feel like $1 million.
Yeah.
You know, whether you're a size 6 or a size 14 or you're 6 foot tall or you're, you know, 4'9", whatever it is, you put it on and you're like, damn.
But it also must be I thought about it the other day, like it must be really fucking sick to just know that like you can make something that people pay a lot of money for and like you can do it however you want. Like I remember I did a textile class in year 11 and I thought, oh, you know, this will be easy. I'm pretty sure I still got the shirt that I made, and it's horrendous, man.
Yeah, it's hard.
It's so fucking hard. So it must feel amazing to know that you've got this system in place where you can just, if you wanted to, you could create pretty much anything that you like, in a way.
It is like liberating in a sense, because it's like you have this creative vision that you can bring to life. Like I can get an idea at like 8 a.m. and by 6 p.m. I've got it.
The pattern,
you know? Yeah. Well, no, like the whole garment.
Sample,
like we,
Shit.
And I remember back in my younger days, you know, when I used to go to clubs and, you know, have a social life.
Yeah, I heard you were a bit of, what did he say? Dimmy said you're one for hanging out at, was it Eve?
Alhambra.
Alhambra, that's it. Fuck, dude, Alhambra.
Yeah, taking me way back. Yeah, I was always so frustrated because I knew how I wanted to look and I knew how looking a certain way made me feel, but there was nothing really that was doing it for me. Or, you know, I might get lucky and find, you know, one outfit one week, you know, that made me feel great, but there was never one place that I could kind of go to find things that made me feel amazing. And at the end of the day, I've carried that on into my business, you know, model. I just know how girls want to feel. They just want to feel sexy and empowered and strong. And I'd like to think that that's what I bring them. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be very nice. I mean, I remember when a few years ago I found Suit Shop and P. Johnson Taylors.
Yeah.
And it was, because I'm short, obviously, and finding clothes for me is like really tough. You always have to get things cut off massively, or like, but I've also got thick Greek thighs.
Yep.
So like it was either way too long.
Yep.
Or
you go the size up and it's all baggy.
Yeah,
and,
super baggy.
Yep.
So yeah, finding that for me was like fucking mind blown.
Yep.
It was amazing. So I would agree, and I think if there's more variables for women's clothing and it's harder to find something that fits certain body types, you could imagine that would be even more of an impact.
Well, yeah, and I think the thing is we're all proportioned differently. So, you know, you could be a size 12, but you might have a really big bust, or you might have broader shoulders, or you might be pear-shaped. And that doesn't mean that one size 12 will fit another size 12.
Yeah.
So making something that was proportionate to a woman's shape, not a number, was, you know, something I think that really set me apart.
When I have to ask about scratching that mass market itch. So obviously, Effie Kats is around. I'm not sure how old Bayse is.
Bayse, I started in December of 2018.
December 2018.
Yeah.
Okay. Obviously, you've said that in prior interviews. You're trying to scratch that itch.
Yeah.
How are you ensuring that you're doing things at somewhat of your own pace? Like, what would happen if you were sick tomorrow?
Yes, that is a very good question. I can't be sick. I think for me, Bayse is extremely self-sufficient in that my business partner and I both do it. My pattern maker, Kathy, she kind of knows now what I want. So she thinks like me. And I guess, you know, I could do social media from bed. Effie Kats is a lot more hands-on. The garments are more complex. And we're in really infant stages in growing into that mass market, sort of, not mass market, but more of a commercial space. So we were heavily custom based. And I didn't mind going slow, you know, where, you know, in the past I was like, oh, I want to go national, I want to be in every shopping centre, I want to do this, I want to do that, you know, whatever. Where now I was kind of like, you know what, I was so broken by my past experiences that I just wanted to fall in love with it again.
Yeah.
And I was happy to take my time.
Yeah.
But my dad was kind of like, come on, we need to go. Let's do this. Let's do online, you know. And he really pushed for that. And now we're going into that space. But we're going at a pace that I feel is not going to burn me or my passion out.
Yeah.
And that's
probably
important.
the key thing.
And I don't care about making $1 million. I care about maintaining my passion and my love for the industry because I see things differently. The way that I live my life, the number one thing for me is to wake up and be happy and to be like, I can't wait to go to work, or, I'm so happy, I'm so grateful that I'm living this life, where before it was just like, I was dead inside. And I think that happens to a lot of people.
It does.
You know? And I'm going to die.
Yeah.
What's the point?
We're only here for a limited period of time. May as well enjoy it.
Exactly.
Do you find that with your creative process in particular for the Effie Kats tailoring, that, because in some of these interviews, they're obviously like 2018, 19. What's changed since then? How involved are you in the process now?
Well, I still see clients. I am training my assistant, Zainab, to take on all the fittings because that's getting increasingly difficult for me to do between the two. So during the coronavirus, as it hit, we, obviously everybody's events were cancelled and everything came to a grinding halt. And I was on a bit of a runaway train with custom because we were so busy making custom dresses, and it's not a really scalable business model. But again, it was something that I was enjoying, and I wasn't quite sure how to stop because it was on, there was so much momentum for it, and I didn't have time to think about how I would transition from that to ready to wear. So we had launched a website, but I wasn't really giving it that much. And once the coronavirus hit, we knew that we had to really shift towards more of an online focused business. And that's what we did. And so I started creating, I was creating pieces before that were like, custom. People had events and they wanted to stand out, and they couldn't find something, that made them stand out. Where now I was like, okay, people are going to want pieces that they can implement into their wardrobe that's not going to date. It's not going to be like, oh, there she is in that red dress again, or, they could wear with lots and lots of different things and that weren't going to date and were also going to be affordable. So I still wanted to create statement pieces, but pieces that people would be able to wear in their wardrobe year after year and with different outfits. So like leather skirts and, beautifully cut satin shirts and stuff like that, that still made them feel great, but they could wear with lots of different things.
Do you find that you want to do, in terms of the custom side of things, that eventually you want to do something that like a suit shop or a P. Johnson does, where maybe they have like a certain, they have a lookbook, let's say, and you just pick a fabric and they have a certain pattern that they
like
would
a
then...
block.
Like a block that they would then...
You can change the collar or, different things like that.
Exactly. So you skip the wastage component. It is still technically custom. It's just not as custom as brand spanking new design.
Look, I think in a sense, like we do have our blocks. We have our single-breasted, we've got the double-breasted, we've got, different cuts and shapes, and I kind of assess with the client what their needs are, what their shape is, what's going to work best for them. So in a way, we do that already, but I think I imagine these guys would have like every size in store, so they'll put a size on you and they'll figure out maybe...
yes, sort of,
rather
but not
than just
in every
measuring
style.
you freehand?
They will measure everything, but they'll only take certain measurements. And then obviously P. Johnson, there's an extended list. Like they might take 6 measurements, and then you get to the P. Johnson label, and it's maybe like 16 or something like that.
Yeah.
But they generally have certain style. I guess with men's, it's sort of everything's so blocky though.
It is.
It is a lot different when you think of it. Like Women's is so complex because with guys it's like you need pants and a jacket. How do you want the jacket? How do you want your lapels?
Yep.
How do you want double-breasted, single-breasted? How many buttons works in this scenario? Okay, let's grab this jacket, which this guy got made and it's a similar size. So you can see how it's a bit more blocky in that regard, whereas it's going to be harder.
It is. I think I want to always maintain a space where women feel like there's something for all of them. And that is really hard because I know in that retail process, a lot of women feel so discouraged by going to shops and putting things on and this didn't fit, and they go home and they beat themselves up like nothing fit, nothing looked good. And again, I've been there where I've gone to stores and I'm like, oh, yeah, everything looked crap.
Yeah.
You feel so bad about yourself. And I've always wanted to create that space where all women feel like it's so inclusive and they feel empowered by the experience rather than, feeling like, they walk away feeling bad about themselves. So I think no matter what, no matter how logistically we figure it out, that is like my core, absolute must from that process. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, now that we're post-COVID, we're going through this awkward stage of masks, no masks, the hand sanitizer and all that sort of stuff. What I know you've mentioned in previous interviews that there's probably going to be a resurgence in affordable fashion, but also innovation in pieces. What do you think about when you daydream? Like I do, I always do this. I'm fucking standing in the shower and it's meant to be like a 5-minute shower, but it turns into 20 minutes because I'm daydreaming about this problem or that problem. What do you think about like 6 months from now? What does that look like for you?
I think everything's really uncertain at the moment. Obviously, overseas, everyone's going into lockdown again, and we're kind of monitoring cases every day. And it's like, what if there's an outbreak? What if we go back into lockdown? I think there's still that uncertainty. I mean, if I could have it my way, I'd love to imagine a world in 6 months' time where people just have their zest for life back and they just want to get dressed and they want to live life to the fullest. But I think, even personally, I feel a little bit apprehensive and I'm still feeling the blows of everything that's gone on this year. I think no matter how strong you are, it takes a toll on you in ways that you don't realise. And I think that's okay.
So just wait and see.
Wait and see
what happens. I'm pretty confident, though. There's a guy that I follow on YouTube that works at the NHS.
Yes.
He's like a specialist in infectious diseases.
Yes.
And he's older. He's sort of like semi-retired.
Are you going to give me some good news?
He's really confident that next year will be pretty much back to normal. The issue is at the moment, the winter that's upcoming in the Northern Hemisphere is going to be bad.
Yeah.
So, he went through for 30 minutes just the Pfizer vaccine. Yeah. And it looks really good.
Yeah.
Like 90% of people now have antibodies for coronavirus. They don't know how long they'll have them for. Like, are we going to have this, like a flu shot every year? Yeah. And then only 4 in like 30,000 people got coronavirus, and those 4, which is 0.00013%, so a minute amount, weren't even that sick. Like, it was like having a cold. So it's looking pretty good, I would say.
I hope.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm always very conscious of the things that I put into my body.
Yeah.
So I would have to be
pretty confident. Yeah. So we'll see what happens. But even if the majority of the population gets the vaccine, I think things will be able to return back to normal. So we'll see. But before we get into some rapid fire questions to finish things off, I've got to ask you, you do all these interviews. Oftentimes you get talking about the administration and that rock bottom topic. What is the topic you wish people asked you more about?
I'm on this like fun journey of self-discovery, and learning to love all the aspects of myself. And, I guess there's always things that we wish were different about ourselves, or, certain things that we don't like, but learning to love what makes me, I guess, unique, and also navigating through this journey of personal discovery and growth, and seeing it all as like an opportunity to further develop myself. So I guess that is something that I'm so entrenched in at the moment, and I love talking about that.
Yeah. Well, what do you wish at the moment that you could change about yourself the most?
My anxiety, for sure.
Yeah?
Yeah. I think that's been one of the most challenging things, because whether it's, doing an interview with someone like yourself, or having a conversation with other professionals, or being in a space, where I'm at an event with all these incredible people, sometimes you can get really stifled. Well, I feel really stifled by my circumstances and how I combat my anxiety. And I'm just like, oh, I wish I wasn't so nervous. I wish I said that. Or, sometimes you say dumb stuff and you're like, oh.
So is your anxiety social anxiety?
Yeah.
Or you and Lauren are
Yeah.
very similar in that regard. She's got pretty bad social anxiety and she feels terrible about it. But I kind of find it endearing in a way. Like,
Thanks.
do you know what I mean? But she's sort of at this, because my anxiety was generalized anxiety, specifically to do with health. I was paranoid that I was going to drop fucking dead at any moment.
Okay.
Really, really like intense type
So
stuff.
what, you would get like sick and be like,
like I'd see like a dot here and I was like, oh, is that cancer?
Yeah, okay.
Like that type of thing. Or like I'd feel my heartbeat.
Yep.
And I'd be like, am I having a heart attack?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yep.
And so I would have panic attacks on the regular. It's like the thing with your sister with the not being able to swallow.
Yeah.
Mine was paranoia about choking, and like it gets different things get reinforced by things that happen in your life. Like my dad, classic Greek, we ate a lot of octopus, and one time he was like, he wasn't choking. He, I reckon, has anxiety as well. He just doesn't want to admit it. Never wants to admit it. And he was like, oh, I've got this thing here. And it's like, but really he just didn't chew something properly and he was fine. Because I remember asking my uncle about it, and he's like, I don't remember this moment at all in my life. Whereas it's like a big thing for dad.
Yeah, right.
So as it turned out, I take now to this day 20 milligrams of this thing called Floxtane, which is pretty much Prozac. Right. And it's not much.
It relaxes you?
It's just enough to take the edge off and function normally. I don't have panic attacks ever. I still get anxious. Like, I'll be honest, before every interview, I get like anxious.
Yeah.
I always used to get anxious. Like I always needed to pee before doing competitive sport. Or like when I did rowing at school, I would vomit before every rowing race.
Yep.
So
I get the peeing because like I probably pee like 15 times a day.
Yeah, that's the thing. Lauren's got the same thing.
It's a nervous thing.
Yeah, it's a nervous
especially at
energy,
night. I'll be laying in bed and I'll just be like, no, I need to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And it'll just be like nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm like, and I'll go to bed and then half an hour later, I'm like, okay, yep. And my partner's like, you have the bladder of a 90-year-old woman.
Yeah. So how do you, like, at night, how do you sort of decompress then?
Not well.
Are you on your phone?
Yeah.
I'm telling you that have you ever been much of a reader?
It's funny you bring that up because I just bought a book and I have always wanted to read more. I used to love reading. And I think when I started my business like 7 years ago, since then I just stopped. And I find it really, really relaxing and I think incredible for the imagination to transport yourself to other worlds. So
but you could read fiction. You could read anything. I can't really read non-fiction because it keeps me awake because it's like it reminds me of reading Harry Potter at like 13 and having the light on. But when I read, fiction is fictitious, obviously. Yes. Non-fiction, is what I currently read. Fiction is what I struggle to read.
Okay. All
so
right,
if I can, at the moment I'm reading a book, it's called The Luxury Strategy. It's about marketing for luxury goods. And I'll be like, I found the biggest, there's two big changes I made. Reading at night.
Yeah.
Because I used to have like, I don't know if you've ever had this, I'd start to fall asleep and I go, like I'd sort of scare myself away.
Yep.
And Lauren will get that if she's too overexhausted as well. So you've got to start reading at night. Because you'll be fucking out and you'll sleep like
I'm sure.
a queen.
Because you calm your nervous system, you know, because mine's just like this all the time.
Yeah.
So I completely agree. The book is there. I'm about 7 pages in.
Holy shit, you and Lauren are very similar. Like she's had this book that I read in about a week.
Yeah.
And it's been sitting on her bedside table for 3 months. So in that space of time I've read like 10, 12 books.
Yep.
With the social anxiety, is there something that grinds your gears the most?
About myself or?
Yeah.
I think I overthink conversation and like what I'm going to say to the point where I scare myself out of it and then I just don't say anything.
Yeah.
And because I don't want to sound like an idiot.
Yeah.
But then I'll end up, it's funny, I was in a situation where I was with one of my best friends, Sharon. We were at Fashion Week and I don't really get starstruck, but if it's someone that I've admired from when I was young, then I'll get nervous. So like really weird, you know, people that you wouldn't expect, like people I'd seen on Neighbours, like, you know, Dr. Carl or something like that, just because I'd seen him, you know what I mean? For like...
and so what, you freeze in the conversation?
Well, I love Pip Edwards.
Okay.
She's just like an absolute boss. PE Nation is incredible and everything she's done, I'm just in awe of. But I used to love her from... You know, back in the day when blogs were a thing, do you remember that?
Yeah.
Blogs were a thing. And, you know, she was always the one getting snapped by street style photographers. And she was, you know, working at Subi and then Sass & Bide and General Pants. I just thought she was so cool. And I said to my friend Sharon, I was like, oh my God, there's Pip. And she's like, oh my God, I know Pip, come. And I was like, no. And she pulls me over and she's like, oh, Pip, this is my friend Effie. She's a designer too. And I was like, hello. And I literally just, you know, she was just like, oh, I just got off a plane and I just did, you know, this. And she was just chatting about her day and like, you know, she's like so high energy and incredible. And I was just like,
because I try and encourage Lauren to do that. Like when we were setting up before and she's doing the camera, she's probably like silently freaking out.
yeah.
Like and she's trying to do the story and she's probably just like...
Yeah, oh, I get that. It's like you're all alone in it, you know, and it's just, it gets so overwhelming.
It's so, I can't help but say it's so endearing.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, I don't know how Pip found it, but she was amazing. And since then she had like messaged me and she was like, hey, I love this piece. Can you send me this? And she's, you know, worn my stuff and tagged me and she's always so awesome when I bump into her. So that was really cool. But these are the moments that I guess I experience with my social anxiety and my friend Sharon's incredible. She's an actor on Neighbours and she just knows the right thing to say. She could literally talk to anyone about anything. And I just look at her in wonder and I'm just like, your conversational skills are just so impressive. I wish I could be more like that.
Do you find like you struggle making friends? Not struggle making friends, but like you struggled to get out there and socialise as much as you could? And that's why you sort of dive into the work?
I think it's funny because I've made a lot of my friends today are people who came to me wanting a garment in my industry or, you know, in a creative industry like acting or, you know, television or whatever. And it's been through that process, I guess that's my comfort space.
Yeah.
And that's where I guess I feel most me. And that's where I've really connected with people and made incredible friends. But you know, socially can be tricky. I mean, Scotch helps.
Okay, so you're a Scotch drinker.
Yeah, but I am one of those people where, yeah, it's like, it's a bit of a paradox because I have this social anxiety, but I somehow make friends. I don't know how. I don't know how it works, but
they're probably drawn to you and what you're doing. And it's funny you mentioned Scotch because Lauren's obsessed with whiskey as well. We've got a bunch of whiskey downstairs, but I find that she just dives into her work, which, like, her work is easy to get out of seeing people because she's a creative director. She doesn't, like, the only conversation she needs to have with people is through Slack or email or whatever. She gets really nervous for client meetings, but once they're done, she's fine. Like, it's after the fact that she's fine.
yeah.
So, yeah. She said to me in the past that she wonders whether something like a fluoxetine would help.
Yep.
Have you ever thought about something like that?
I have, but again, it's an antidepressant, right? Is it?
It's not. I think they're all classed as antidepressants, but it's an anti-anxiety specifically medication. But I know what you mean. I held off taking anything for like 6-7 years.
Yeah, I think I have family members that do take antidepressants, and I have seen the change in them. And I think, again, for me, that upbringing comes of like, you got to be tough, you got to, you know, and I've always been like, I'll take the hard road if I feel like that's my process. And I've always been one to just do it tough, but
yeah,
you know.
Well, like it's the same situation for me in that I told the GP what's the absolute bare minimum I can take, and that's what she gave me. She's like, in any scenario, if someone couldn't eat food, I'd be giving them like 50 milligrams, 100 milligrams, some type thing. Yeah. I'm like, I think if it just takes the edge off, I'll be okay. And I think as well, probably what you're thinking about is like a lot of, if you got a bad GP that you don't see regularly, they overdose people.
Well, yeah,
or
I
they use
see
that
so many
first.
things. Yeah.
They use that first. Like I had 30 sessions with a psychologist for like 6 months before we decided to take that. So I think that's like another big thing that people miss. I think if you go through that whole process of changing your life, seeing a psych for so long and you still don't have the impacts, then and only then should you consider it. I
think it's like a personal choice, and I think intrinsically we know deep down what's right for us and what's not, and what's right for one might not be right for another. And I've always been, I think my primary concern with it more than anything is that it's going to stifle like my creativity. Yeah. And that's why I just haven't, and I've always just kind of pushed through because that's, I guess, what I know and that's what I've always done. But, I mean, you never know. Life takes so many twists and turns. Maybe down the road that's something I will explore. But so far, I'm just taking it one panic attack at a time.
All right, let's jump into some rapid-fire questions to finish things off. So, first one, what does your morning and evening routine look like at the moment?
Okay. So I get up at 7:30, which is a bit of a sleep into what I was used to pre-COVID.
Which was what, 6:36?
Oh, yeah, 6:37, up by 7. Any later, and I'm like, oh. But yeah, so 7:30, I'll get up and make a coffee. Okay. I like to walk outside on the grass, barefoot.
Nice.
Apparently grounding is like, that's my meditation.
That's good.
Yeah. And, you know, it's kind of like a quick pace around, but at least, you know, like we tick that off the list. I go through my emails and then I get into the office. So my week is split between Bayse Brand and Effie Kats brand, 2 days each, and then 1 day of shooting content. But, you know, it's 24/7 gig. Yeah. Yeah, people would think that that's like actually the case of like, oh, she only looks at Bayse stuff Wednesday, Thursday. Like, no. It'll be constant. It's constant. And both of them are demanding in different ways.
In the evening, how do you sort of decompress at night?
Again, not something that I do very well. But I have an amazing partner. And he calms me. So I love spending time with him and switching off. It's tricky on the nights that I'm posting because I generally post around 9 o'clock is my peak time. So on the nights where I'm posting, I'm very involved with that and, seeing what the website clicks are doing and, all that. And I probably shouldn't.
You can't help yourself.
Can't help myself.
Do you guys have a wine at night? What have you been watching recently?
Oh, I'm just straight Scotch all the time. I can't do wine. I suffer from chronic migraines. So wine is something that triggers them. So anything that gives me migraines, I avoid. But yeah, we finished Ozark. We loved that.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It was great.
If you were to put a billboard anywhere in Melbourne or Sydney, I'll give you Sydney as an option, where would it be, first of all? So think about placement, and then what would you put on it?
A billboard for, well, it depends which brand, I guess. But the billboards that I always notice are the ones going over the Balti. Yeah.
Yeah, that's on the way to the airport. Yeah, they're good.
Yeah.
People always talk about Punt Road and the actual airport one, but yeah, those are...
Punt Road's a good one.
There's a bunch of billboards that feel like outside DFO sort of thing on the way to the airport as well that...
Yes, the square... Yeah, I know the ones.
Big square ones.
But I think they're like DFO ones.
I think they may be,
yeah.
But I know the ones you're talking about when you sort of go just over the Balti.
And then over each bridge, they have like a... And I always notice them. It's always for like Kiss FM or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
So maybe just my face there.
Just there. Okay. If you were to select the best purchase under $200, what would it be?
Like clothes or...
Anything you want?
Well, I've recently, again, it's my form of winding down. And also, I'm getting a bit older and my body's not bouncing back the way it used to. So I've never been one to work out really, but I have been, I've made a real effort to commit to that this year for my mental and physical health. And I bought the best leggings I've ever worn in my whole life. Every time I put them on, I feel incredible. And it really motivates me to work out. So I guess, that's what you want gym gear to do, right? Yeah. They're by my friend Tully. The brand's called Tully Lou. Okay. Literally the best leggings I've ever worn in my whole life.
Tully Lou leggings.
Yeah.
Are you able to go back to gym at the moment? Our gym's closed still.
Well, I was doing PT, and my PT is one of our family friends. So...
so you're sweet.
Yeah.
You're sorted.
Yeah.
Effie, thanks for coming in. Where can people find you on the interwebs?
So my Effie Kats brand, you can find me on Instagram, Effie Kats, and it's www.effiekats.com, and then Bayse Brand is basebrand.com.
We'll make sure we link all that stuff in the show notes, but thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for watching Uncommon and this week's episode. If you like it, smash that like button. If you want to keep up to date with what we're doing, please do subscribe. We would love that. We'd love to build this audience that we're growing here of uncommoners. If you want to keep up to date with audio, you can search for us on all of your good podcast apps. It's Uncommon or Uncommon Show. Will typically find us. For social, you want to see behind the scenes this amazing studio that I'm sitting in, just search at uncommon_show. And everything will be there, including our weekly promos. But look, thanks so much for stopping by. Until next time, thanks for watching.